Welcome to game day. Jets are facing off against the Raiders in Las Vegas today. I'm excited about it. I just want tonight to happen, but I'm looking forward to being able to watch football all day. Got a few things going on. I want to talk to you guys about your questions, things, concerns you guys might have about the game. We can talk about some of the rumors going around. As you can see up here on the screen right now, it seems like Belichick, we had guesses that he might be out in New England at some point, but it seems like other people are starting to talk about it too. Lots of stuff to get into. Lots of stuff. I see Dakota in there. Jets, please win today. 5-4. Jets, says JT. All right. So what are we to do about our New York Jets today, and how are we feeling going into this game? Do we think we're going to be winning? I put a poll question in the chat. Will Brees have over 100 yards today? The Raiders are the second to last team in terms of rushing yards allowed per game. That is the worst next to the Denver Broncos. Jets played Denver. Brees went off in that game. So I would expect a heavy dose of the same thing today. And then the offensive line-wise, there could be 100 sacks. There could be like 100 sacks today between the Jets' offensive line and the Raiders' beat-up offensive line too. So if you can get the, if you're going to play along with underdog, I took the over on sacks for Zach at 2.5. I took the over on sacks for Aiden O'Connell at 2.5. I mean, Zach took 8 last week, but I would say, 3 is not unreasonable to think of. Took the over on the kicker with Zerline. Or is it going to be a, over-under 36.5 points? Do you think it's going to be higher or lower than 36.5 points? That I do not know. I feel like I always take the lower for the Jets. JP says, let's go. Nanga says, good morning, everyone. Keith thinks it's going to be 27-16. Better Call Saul wants to get this dub. Nanga thinks this is going to be a 13-10 game, so he's hammering the under. Not overly optimistic, I see. I want to score some points. That's what I want to have happen. I really do. Keith thinks 178 total yards, rushing yards today. Yeah, if it's across all the backs, I don't care. Brees doesn't have to have 100 yards if everyone else has a ton of yards. But when Brees gets a bunch of carries, it means we're heading the right direction. JT says, I hope Brees goes over 100. I grabbed him in underdog. First time playing the fantasy app, thanks for my deposit match with my Jets 24/7 code. JT, my dude, thank you for supporting the channel. I have a lot of fun. You'll see my my pick up here at some point. I had it on there before. I don't know where it is. But I took Quincy. What did I take? I think I took Quincy 8 sacks and assists total this week. I took the 2 quarterbacks getting sacked a lot. The other one. Zerline. Oh, and Brees over 15.5 touches. So, over 100. Hopefully that means the Jets are doing all right and they're running Brees a lot. Then you got Adams and Aaron Rodgers hanging out last night. Of course, they're playing together. Of course, they're hanging together after playing together for so long. I just want to see this reunion. As much as I don't really want to trade for a wide receiver, it just feels like it makes too much damn sense. We can dream. The dude says, bold to think the Jets can score 27 points. That's a lot of points. I don't think that's going to happen. Mothman says, we are winning today. I got a feeling the Jets are going to have their back against the wall, and I think we'll see a better team today than we've seen the last 2 weeks. I think they're going to kind of bond together. They need to. They got to get this figured out. Q says Crosby might get 2.5 by himself. Dude's an animal. Absolute freak show. Absolute freak show. Lewis says, my biggest concern is two things. Zach plays below average and we win, or Zach plays okay and we lose. Somehow, with both scenarios, I don't ever see Zach being benched. Shake my head. So I'm not really calling for Zach to be benched necessarily. I really wanted to see Simeon come up as quarterback 2 at the very least. The last time Zach had any pressure on him, they brought in Trevor Simeon. They brought him in after the Patriots game. And then the Chiefs game was the game that followed, and Zach had his best game. So why not bring Simeon up to quarterback 2, put a little pressure on Zach? Zach seems to do well under pressure, at least time constraint pressure and 2-minute drill pressure. Not necessarily the pressure of an entire game, but in those really crunch time situations, Zach's been pretty solid. So maybe it's a pressure thing. But you're never going to go to Tim Boyle. So even if Zach's having a bad game, I mean, maybe I get saying it's his highest. He has the highest ceiling because he does. He absolutely has the highest ceiling of all our quarterbacks. But I don't know if I necessarily need ceiling if I can have a consistent floor. The alternative fact says Jets have the worst third down percentage, 22.1%. The red zone percentage, 23.8%. Since the NFL began tracking those stats in the 1970s. 50 years! That's absurd. That's so bad. Stifler's mom says, I better see some fireworks, Zach. I want to see him have a game. For sure. We need it from him. GTA 4-Man says, I hate watching other teams' offenses move the ball. It's so frustrating. Football just seems easier for other teams than it does for the Jets. So it's always frustrating to see what we get each time. Harry W says, I don't think we can score in the air. I hope we can. Scott V said, I would love to see some creativity on offense. Been saying it every week, so don't think it'll come. Hackett needs to dig deep in his bag of tricks. So I want to see some end arounds. I want to see a little bit of razzle-dazzle. But get the ball out in space to Breece and Garrett. Even though Garrett fumbled the ball last week on that play out in the flat, that's the type of play I do want to see from the two of them. And I'm cool with Breece going out wide, too, or playing in the slot. As a receiver, you want to put him and Cook in at the same time? Cool. Down with that, too. Let's get creative here. But I do think we should be running the ball heavy today. Should have a lot of 12 and 13 personnel. The reality is, to pull a quarterback, to spark change, it's my opinion. It's not, it's got to be crystal clear that it's him, Salah on Friday. Yeah, it's not all on Zach, though. So I get that. There's definitely a consensus that the offensive line issues and the penalties and the miscues by the wide receivers, there's a lot that's contributing to the Jets not winning. I just feel like you're stuck with Hackett, so you can't do anything about Hackett and play calling. Your injuries are what they are, so you can't really do anything about that. I do think they should see some more reps from other receivers, or maybe not target Lazard as much as they do. And then penalty-wise, they have to clean that up regardless of who's starting. So I guess penalties, if you could fix the penalties and you could maybe target some other receivers and Zach starts to look better or Zach starts to look the same, then maybe there's more of a cause to move on to another one. I don't know. GTA Man seems to think that Devontae Adams is going to be a Jet next year. I think a lot of people feel that way. JT says, can we bet over-unders in New Jersey? I thought that wasn't available. So you can't do over-unders in New Jersey. You could do it in most other states. You could do the draft. What's it called? The snake drafts in Jersey. They should expand it to here soon, I would think. Everything else has grown. Mothman says Zach Wilson 3 touchdowns. We got a 3-touchdown game from Zach Wilson. We're feeling pretty damn good about it. Alternative fact says something's got to change for the Jets to stay in the playoff hunt. Will it be the quarterback? Look, they just got to play better. J-Boy says it will be 14-0 at the end of the first. Jets will have 0 first downs today. No. No, I don't want to see that. Come on. Positive. Let's stay positive here. That's what I want to see. Jeremy, watching Colts game. If Jets signed Gardner Minshew, or however you spell his name, Jets would be 6-2 right now. I really like Gardner Minshew. He was the backup quarterback I would have preferred. David Smith says, sure, don't read my comments. Not good for media narratives. I get, David, what did you say? What did David Smith say? I don't have any comments in here from you, David. This is the first one I'm seeing. Jeremy says they need design runs for Zach and move the pocket. David Smith says Zach has a great arm and can run very well. He just needs to protect the football better. Well, he hasn't really been turning the ball over. It's just that, well, I mean, I guess the fumbles, right? The fumbles are annoying. That's partially on the offensive line as opposed to just having interceptions. But I would like to see Zach use his legs a lot more. He's fast. It's a weapon. They should absolutely utilize that more. David says, Jets are winning, though, with Zach, 4-4. I don't know if they're winning because of Zach. I mean, there's moments at the end of games where Zach plays well for like the final 2 minutes, and the Jets wind up winning. But are the Jets in that situation because of how the first 58 minutes went? I don't know. I tend to think we're winning a little more in spite of Zach as opposed to because of Zach. But I'm hoping he kind of figures it out. There's been enough reasonable excuses since the Chiefs game that I feel like made sense. Last game just kind of hurt from like an everything perspective. Offensive line crumbled, penalties everywhere. Lazard can't catch a cold. J-Boy says, guys, our head coach ran out of reasons this past week. The D is going to make a statement today. You'll see hands on hips and the D yelling on the sideline. I want the D to just absolutely feast on Aiden O'Connell today. I want him to never want to take a snap again. I want him to be so distraught from everything going on that he is not does not have the confidence to continue on. JT says, Zach was maybe 25% of our issues on Monday. Can't even really blame him for Monday. 3 drops. Brees, Garrett, both fumbling. Penalties. We need to clean it up. I agree. I would probably put Zach a little higher on that list. I just don't want to. I don't want to see more of the same sloppiness. It feels like we've been sloppy since the bye week. I attributed the Giant game to the weather, but Monday was a very undisciplined game across the board. Lewis says, where is training camp star Brownlee? It can't hurt to put him in. I agree. I would like to see him a little bit more, but I guess, I don't know, maybe they're just trying to justify Lazard's contract. I'd like to see some of the younger kids get some reps, especially because Zach played more with Brownlee being on the second team in the practice squad. Edward seems to think the dopey coach is going down with the ship. Is that what we think? Robert Saleh going down? I don't think anyone's going down until they get a full season with Rodgers. GTA says Zach can't take sacks like he did last week. Ball needs to come out fast. He needs to recognize pressure and run. Yeah, I think he's got to get the ball out in under 2.5 seconds consistently. If it's not there, 1,000, 2,000, run. That's what should happen. That's what should happen. J-Boy says he feels like the team is about to blow up. I'm concerned. This is the most concerned I've been since week 3. After the Patriot game was the worst that I've felt, and now after the Chargers game, I'm not feeling super, super confident. But there was a lot of things wrong, so if we can clean up that stuff, then maybe the lump sum of all that doing better means better stuff. Yeah, JT, I definitely like the prop stuff over the fantasy stuff as well. I concur. Louis B says, why not more Wildcats and RPOs, end arounds and Philly special? Why not be creative to get Zach going? I would like to see that. I think Zach's legs are what get him in a rhythm, so rolling him out of the pocket, having a little bit of razzle-dazzle, getting him to run downfield. Like, Zach's a baller. He's definitely a gamer. So, like, I don't know. I get he's got the highest ceiling. It's almost like he's got to get hurt before we could see another quarterback, which is definitely how it feels. But I'd like to see him run. I think he's good with that. He's just got to get down, slide, get out of bounds, that sort of stuff. Because You want him to build on the rhythm that he's building from running, not like run, get hurt, and then all of a sudden we're on Simeon and we don't like, the results at that point. Alternative Factor says the Jets' offense over the last 3 years under any Jet quarterback not named Zach led the NFL in offense. Connor Hughes. Yes, that's the stat I've been throwing out. I've been throwing out that stat for like the entire season. It's like, this is absurd. It's like 300. I think I have it. Do I still have it? I don't know if I have it pulled up. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, I definitely have it. This one. Bam, right here. Check that out. Yards per game with any other quarterback over the last 3 years, other than Zach Wilson. 304. 304. Zach Wilson at quarterback, 194. I believe this would be 28th. Zach Wilson by himself. Obviously with the Jets because he's got the most time as the starter. But with 12 games, 304 yards. It's a lot. It's also a different offense, though. We haven't seen another quarterback in our current iteration of the offense. So there's a little bit of skewing with that sort of stuff. But definitely the Jets have the weapons. That's the irritating thing. The Jets have the weapons to be able to have a pretty decent offense. If you gave most offenses one of the best running backs, if not like pound for pound, the best running back, Garrett Wilson, who's legit, like that's a lot of weapons right there just with those two. Just interesting. Jeremy says, have to win the turnover battle, need 2 or 3 from the defense, 0 from our offense. Yeah, no, you can't turn the ball over. JT says, I think Hackett's play calling has a little to do with Zach's issues as well. I agree. I definitely agree. I think there's simpler concepts that they could be running. Like if you make Zach only read half the field, he's going to roll out one way or the other. You run out of play action. You run out of the same sets you would run the ball out of. So if you're running 12 personnel, run 12 personnel and have Garrett cut across one way, bootleg Zach out the other way. That way he's moving one half of the field. You get the tight end that can kick out. You have Brees that can hit the flat. Then there's 3 levels of player that you could possibly have. And you could go either way. And then you can also run it out of the same formation. So the defense doesn't entirely know what you're going to do. And if you want to add some motion, freaking have Gibson run from one side to the other. Like from one to the... I just want to see some creativity out of those formations. We see a little bit of it. Andrew says, if we didn't have the O-line injuries, we're a playoff team even with Zach. Yeah, what kills me is that the offensive line combination of AVT at right tackle, Tippmann at guard, McGovern at center, Tomlinson left guard, Becton left tackle. That was my favorite iteration of this offensive line, and it lasted like a game. And it was the Chiefs game. I'm pretty sure. I think that's what it was. GTA Man says we need more creative play calling, run blocking. Hasn't been great. Brees has to do 3 spin moves just to get 10 yards. Yeah, it feels like he's getting hit in the backfield every damn play. Every damn play. Alternative Facts laughing at me. Zach's a baller. He is. He is. Him running, like, I'm not saying throwing the ball, but like running the ball, I feel like you can definitely look at Zach and say, okay, he's fast. He's not afraid to take a hit. He just got to know when to run. He doesn't use his legs enough, in my opinion. Dakota says, Brees having over 100 yards behind this line tonight, more like 30 or 40 max. Hopefully I'm wrong. So the Raiders are the worst team, second worst team in the league to the Broncos in the running yards per game category. I believe they give up 135 yards per game on average, I think was what the number was. So I'm hoping so. Hoping we get that. Freedom says, Brees is going to break 2 long ones for a touchdown. We need it. This offense is anemic without him. It's like, okay, let's just stay afloat. Let's let our defense keep us in it long enough until Brees can just let one rip. David Smith says, his offensive line couldn't protect Mike White, Rodgers, or Zach. They have not been able to. I do think the Rodgers injury was a little bit of a fluke. And Brown is also not playing. Like, I don't think Rodgers was behind our best offensive line. Dakota says, Zach's gonna suck tonight, like always. No one believes in him anymore. I mean, the reports after the game were saying that players cleared out before media availability pretty quickly after last week's game. But it was also a Monday night game, so it was late, so maybe they're like, hey, I just want to go home. Don't want to say something I might regret. Lord says, anybody know the jerseys tonight? I do not know. I'm not sure what the Jets are wearing tonight. Harlan says, hey, do watch. There's only 27 likes. Come on, people, hit the like button. Come on. Lewis says, I wonder if Zach is not a legit quarterback and more of a Taysom Hill style of player. They are both from BYU. Maybe that's how we should use him. That's an interesting idea. Zach's not as fast as Taysom Hill, and he's not as big as Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill is definitely like a bulky dude. And you don't draft that type of player at number 2 overall. But yeah, maybe there's some rationale to that. Maybe Zach comes in and can provide you some of that wildcat quarterback style play. I mean, I would love to see Brees in a wildcat with Zach. I guess that's just shotgun at that point. But getting the ball in Brees' hands, that's what I want to see. Jake says, Ryan, this poll is pointless. Hackett will put in Cook. The second Brees gets a first down. Optimism, Jake. Come on. Stay optimistic here, brother. Alternative fact. How can we win with zero margin of error? Fumble, game over. Interception, game over. False start, game over. I know it's frustrating. It feels exactly how we play each game. And it feels like we make it very challenging on ourselves to actually get a first down. Like every single drive is like pulling damn teeth. Wrong Verb said, did you know some arsonists set fires just to put them out to get credited as heroes? Reminds me of our quarterback. Yeah, like Zach implodes the entire game and then has the hero moment at the end of the game. He's like, oh, wow, he's not that bad. JT says, I agree. Zach's at his best when he rolls out. But when he runs this vanilla offense, it's obviously what we're doing. Yeah, we were calling out plays last week. Matthew says, Brees needs to start blocking better. Yeah, I wish Brees could be in on third downs too. I don't love having Michael Carter in on a down that's so absolutely critical. David D says, what's the update on Belichick? It sounds like from rumors reported by, I believe it was The Athletic, that they believe at the end of the season the New England Patriots and Belichick are going to split ways or part ways. Dakota thinks we should have gotten Carson Wentz. Jets had the opportunity to. Harlan says, Jets overall need to block better. Jets offensive line couldn't protect Darnold either. I wish Darnold got the benefit of playing behind this type of offensive line. Not this iteration of offensive line, but this team in general. I feel like this team overall is really much better than the rosters around Sam Darnold at that point in time. Andrew says, the only quarterback that survived over the last 2 years behind this line is Zach. Yeah, it's like Gumby legs, right? Like when you're younger, you could take a bunch of hits. Flacco, Mike White, just getting folded like lawn chairs. Wrong Verb says, we're going all white unis tonight. I like that. I like the all whites. Jimmy Jet says, did they elevate Trevor yet? No, he's not elevated. So he's staying down on the practice squad. Dakota says, Wentz would have moved the chains for us compared to Zach. Look, there's a reason why Carson Wentz isn't on a football team and why he's like hung around so long and why he was bounced off 3 teams in 3 consecutive years. As much as I do think he's the most talented of the players that were out there, and I think we should have kicked the tires on it. I would have liked to have seen it. I think that's a move you make if you think you could stay in the playoff conversation, and I don't know if the Jets necessarily believe they can. Based on, like, they bring in Simeon, but they don't even try to, like, elevate him. I don't know. Lord Street says, I got black on. Think I'm going to switch to white since I keep seeing it on social media. Yes, it's all white. Go all white. John B says, should have gotten Josh McCown. Could you imagine pulling Josh McCown off the Panthers coaching squad? Isn't he their offensive coordinator? I think he's their OC. Or is he their quarterback coach? Dakota says, blame Zach and Hackett the most then comes Salah. I would, yes. Yeah, I would. I mean, I blame the coach for a lack of discipline, and I feel like wide receivers dropping passes, because it's not just one wide receiver. It was Uzama dropping a pass. It was Conklin, or not Conklin. Uzama, it was Lazard. It was Brees dropping like that fumble. Garrett having a fumble. There was a lot going on. So I feel like the team overall was not very dialed in. And then the individual performances of Zach and of, the offensive line and the penalties to Ruckert and Garrett and Lazard, it's just too much. It's too much. We don't have that level of talent to be able to overcome those types of mistakes. Andrew says, it's not just one of those. It's been a combination of them. I completely agree. J-Boy says, in the last 2 games, what's our number one? How many have we had? In the last 2 games, what's our number one? What are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about, J-Boy. Joe Campone says, go watch CJ Stroud leave his howl, throw the ball. Yeah, it sucks, right? Like, football looks so much easier to every other team. The Jets just make everything look really friggin' hard. I don't like it. I don't like it. It's frustrating. I want to be able to see not that. All right. Alternative Fact says, Troy Aikman really called out Zach last week. Troy was like, Zach Wilson, time with Jets, down 14 points. I was like, Zach Wilson, time with Jets, down 14 points. Yeah. It sucks. And if we don't fumble, there's like 14 more points that don't, or at least like 14 more points that came off drives that were significantly shorter than what our defense had given up. J-Boy says, the craziest thing, I'm almost wanting to see Tim over this shit. I've seen Tim Boyle play in practice and in preseason, and he is not someone I want to watch. Brandon Harper, first time subscribing to your YouTube channel. When I get on YouTube, I search your videos first. Here's for good luck tonight. Thank you, Brandon. I very much appreciate that. It means a lot. There's a lot of places on the internet you could be wasting your time, so to take a little slice of your time, waste it on me, feels pretty good. Jordan says, Wentz is better than Zach. I agree. I think part of it is a chemistry dynamic too, though. Like locker room. I think Wentz is kind of a dickbag. That would be my guess. That's why no team wanted him right now. And he's off 3 teams in 3 years. Jimmy Jet says, put Cobb in at quarterback. Yeah, he's our emergency quarterback, right? Andrew, JD deserves some blame for the offensive line. We knew it was a problem going into the season, and he didn't address it. It's not for lack of trying. He offered Orlando Brown, the top left tackle, right tackle on the market, the highest contract, and he decided to go to the Bengals. Can't blame him for that. Literally all the offensive linemen were drafted before the Jets. There was one that we could have had if we stayed in our number 13 slot, and that was Broderick Jones, but he hasn't even really looked that good. Now, you argue maybe you get Anton Harrison at the end of the first round, but the Jets tried to trade down and they didn't, so I guess they opted for a future pick for a player that they really liked in McDonald because they thought they were going to lose Huff and Lawson at the end of the year, but now Huff is balling out, so now the McDonald pick looks a little foolish because you want to try and re-sign Huff. It's frustrating, right? Jets drafted a lineman in the second round. They drafted Carter Warren after Tittman. They brought in Billy Turner. They brought back McGovern. It ain't for a lack of trying. Definitely not for a lack of trying. Joe says, Ryan, I have more confidence in Hackett playing quarterback than Zach playing quarterback. Oh, that just makes me sad. Fletch says, if they had brought in Wentz in week 2, we could be 6-2 and playoff bound. I would have liked to have seen them. At the time, I was like, okay, I think we're just screwed. We're just kind of stuck with Zach. I said I would have loved to seen Cousins, but now, lo and behold, he gets an Achilles injury, and that would have been an absolutely brutal existence for Ryan if that's how things shook out here. But yeah, look, if they brought in Wentz as soon as Rodgers went down and they said, hey, look, we were planning to redshirt Zach the entire year. We have a lot of faith in Zach, but for right now, we think it's more important that he focuses on himself, trying to get him right. And Rodgers is going to be able to work one-on-one with him in practice. Be there in his back hip pocket. That's what I would have liked to see. Hindsight being 2020. The Freedom House says, if A-Rod didn't get hurt, we wouldn't be blaming anyone, but still, we should have got a quality backup at that point. Yeah, I agree. That was the play. Brandon Harper says, Zach needs to channel his inner Lamar, roll out, and run more. I want to see him run. I really do. Joe says, Ryan, it's not the Jets, it's Zach. It's everything. It's more than just Zach. Zach is the biggest problem of it, I think. Then Hackett. Well, it's probably the offensive line. Then Zach, then Hackett, and then receivers dropping passes and penalties and stuff. Nanga says Max Crosby will have over or under 2 sacks. I put over on 2.5 sacks of Aiden O'Connell and over 2.5 sacks of Zach Wilson today. As far as Max Crosby, if he's coming off our right-hand side, you got to think he gets at least 2. If it's a 1.5, if you're saying Crosby 1.5, I would say over. I would take the over. At 2, I think 2 is probably the likely number. Andrew says Aikman was trash talking the Jets before kickoff. Dude's a hater. Yeah, he's a douche nozzle. I'm not saying fire him, but he gets some blame. Talking about Salah and Hackett, I guess. Jimmy Jets says Wentz might be a D-bag, but he wins. I know. We're not here to bring in, like, the choir. We just gotta bring in dogs. Dave from New Brunswick says, I really thought we were going to go Jackson, Smith, and Najigba in the draft. I thought that's where the Jets were headed. At the time, wide receiver was well stocked. If they thought Corey Davis could have been contemplating retirement, if there was any thought at that point, they should have gone JSN. I think that would have been the right move. I think from a chemistry standpoint, Garrett would have loved it. It would have been 2 young stud receivers. He only just started coming on the last few weeks here, JSN, but better than McDonald. I mean, McDonald's like barely playing at all, other than scaring kickers and making them miss kicks in the pouring rain. Sean says, definitely fear Crosby. Can our third down percentage be successful tonight? Dude, I don't have faith in it. The entire season, our third down percentage has been so astronomically poor. Like, how do you get the offense in a rhythm when you only have 3 plays? It's so frustrating. It's very hard to watch. It's got to get better if the Jets want to have a shot. David, trying to get me to throw my computer through a wall, says, bring back Tebow. I'm going to throw you through a wall, David. Lewis says, I don't know, but I'm still on this BYU thing since Jim McMahon and Steve Young were not known for lighting it up through the air, mostly through mobile quarterbacks, mostly tough mobile quarterbacks. Obviously, Young more than Jim, but Zach needs more runs. Zach's just fast. It's like that's a lethal weapon to his game. The defenses should account for Zach's legs, and we don't nearly use him the way I think could benefit him and us. David Smith says, Jets fans were calling for benching Zach at 5-3 last year, and how did that work out? I mean, we got hurt. We lost AVT. We lost Brees. You had Barrios drop the game-winning touchdown in Minnesota. Mosley's jumping off sides in a game against Detroit. I'm trying to think what else happened in that stretch. And then we probably beat the Bills if, like, the offensive line isn't totally decimated. Like, Mike White's a friggin' gamer. He got folded in half like a lawn chair. Joe says Jets need to play 5 linemen who are on the 24 roster plus draft 3 more. You can't build a line playing musical chairs. I just want to see healthy, consistent play. And that's like the part of me that is afraid of Becton and afraid of Bakhtiari. I get a feeling one of them will be a tackle here. We got to draft one as well. I don't know how it all plays out. Josh says, I think we get Devontae and an offensive lineman at the trade deadline if Rodgers was in. Yeah, I don't think Devontae happens. I think that contract was prohibitive because of what they signed him to initially. So I don't know if they'd actually be able to trade him, but it seemed like there was enough feelings at the trade deadline that maybe that's true. I don't want to give up a first. I feel like we need the offensive lineman so bad that you can't give up that first round pick. I guess we'd be using a second round pick if we had Rodgers because he'd be playing all the snaps. And then you'd use that on an offensive lineman. I don't know. J-Boy says 4-12. Well, then we can still go 5-12 because there's 17 games now. Josh, why didn't we get the Vikings guy? I don't know if Joe Douglas was in on that call. Maybe he was focusing too much on the wide receiver side of things to get the offense right and just missed out on a good Vikings trade. Ezra Cleveland would have been the move for a 6th-round pick. Why not? He's playing well. A contract year. Matthew Smith, why the hell didn't we draft Brock Purdy? He wouldn't have looked as good here. Let's call a spade a spade. Shanahan makes a lot of quarterbacks look really good. Dakota, 4-13, 5-12, 6-11. I don't want to see one of those types of years. I want to see at least, I'd like to get to 9 wins. That'd make me feel really good. J-Boy says, it's tank mood, boys. Don't fall for false hope. No, I want to fall for false hope. I want to be optimistic the rest of the season. I'm not giving up. I still want it. This defense is too good to give up. Oreo, if the Jets lose today, will you start looking and making draft videos again just for nostalgia purposes? So admittedly, I did look at a mock draft yesterday because my buddy's a Raider fan. So we're going back and forth a little bit. He's concerned about the quarterbacks, and we were watching the LSU game. We were watching the USC Oregon game. So we were talking quarterbacks at that point in time. And I was like, yeah, I'd really like the Jets to pull the trigger on a quarterback, but it would have been like a 2nd or 3rd round type move is what I would prefer. And I think all the good ones are going to be gone by the 3rd round, and I don't think they're going to do it this year. I would be a little surprised. But as far as draft stuff, I'm going to start focusing a little bit more on some research sides of drafting in college. Like I might start streaming college games to watch these players a little closer. Now that we're getting to the playoffs and the bowl games, we can kind of dial in on a few games that have some firepower in terms of draft prospects. But I don't really want to make mock drafts yet. I will say that. I haven't seen one good mock draft with the Jets, though. Actually, no, that's a lie. I did see one offensive tackle. I'm happy with that. The Freedom House says, yeah, Josh Dobbs would have been a great fit. He's a gamer. Brandon, totally agree if they should elevate Simeon just to apply more pressure on Zach. Shake the proverbial finger at him again. That's what I'm saying. Just apply a little pressure, right? Replacing Zach will address so many questions. Big question, is Hackett a hack? Well, that's the issue, right? Like you can't get rid of Hack because Rodgers clearly came here in part because of Hackett. So if you can move some other piece, which is like literally Zach. Like I think they don't want to move Zach because it would expose Hackett worse. Like that's probably some little iteration of this. It just sucks. We got screwed out of Rodgers. Fletch says our O-line isn't any worse than some other teams that have much better offenses. A good quarterback can make up for a subpar offensive line. I agree. Quarterback that gets the ball out fast makes up for a lot of offensive line woes. NY Jets Florida says the only rational explanation for not benching Zach is they know Rodgers is coming back soon and Saleh is dancing around questions and pleading the fifth. Also, signing of Simeon is proof of that. I don't know if that's proof of it. I don't think Rodgers is coming back before December, and I don't think it's happening before like the Thursday night game against the Browns. I think both games would then be, actually, I don't know if Gillette's turf or not. I don't know if there's any concern over turf versus grass. But I could see Rodgers starting Cleveland at the end of the season. But you got to be in contention at that point. Are the Jets really going to be 2 games out with 2 games to go? I hope so. Andrew says, after we lost out on the tackle, I wanted JSN or Kincaid. Was disappointed with McDonald, but hope he pans out. Just seems like a waste for a win-now season to pick an edge that needs time to develop. That's where I was frustrated. When we were talking before the game, it was like, or before the draft, it was like, what position would you be upset if we drafted? I really don't want to draft edge. I'd be very upset if we drafted an edge. And we took an edge. I was like, well, it came up as a linebacker. And I was like, wait, what? What are we doing in the first round? Then I saw edge rusher. And I was like, all right, I get what the thought process was at least. And in hindsight, receiver's probably the move. I don't know. Would have liked to see an offensive line. Board just didn't really break our way. I really liked Kincaid. I thought Kincaid was the best pass catcher of all the players coming out of the draft. I didn't really like this wide receiver class. JSN, I didn't even really love JSN, to be honest. I would have been fine with taking him with the Jets' first round pick. But Kincaid, I thought, was really, really good. Dave from New Brunswick. Can we look at a list together available free agent wide receivers just for fun? Yeah, let's see what we got. Let me pull this up. Go to over the cap. Free agency 2024. We'll look at wide receivers. Let's see. Let's change this. All right. Let's see if I can do this a different way. Whoops. All right. So this is the list of wide receivers that are going to be hitting free agency this year. Mike Evans is the top one. Like for me, I would prefer Mike Evans over going with someone like Devontae Adams, just because you don't have to trade for him. You're instantly saving your draft picks for the offensive lineman that I think you're going to need, that you're not going to be able to get in free agency. So Mike Evans, Odell becomes a free agent. I don't know if he comes here at that point. There's a few other options I would prefer. I like Tyler Boyd. I do like Michael Thomas. I don't know if he's going to come up this way, though. Let's see who else is in here. Calvin Ridley. That would be interesting. I want T. Higgins. I really like T. Higgins. I think T. Higgins is the best free agent wide receiver that's going to hit the market. He's the youngest. I think he's going to cost them the most, so I don't think the Jets are going to get him. But, man, he's really friggin' good. Yeah. So for me, I would say Mike Evans. Depends how much you want to spend, right? Like, what's the Jets' budget going into the offseason? Josh Sloan says Hollywood Brown. That's right. He is available. He's on the shorter side of things, though, isn't he? I think he's like 6'1". I'd like a bigger possession type wide receiver, which is where Mike Evans and T. Higgins kind of come in. I don't know how tall Tyler Boyd is. Let's check offensive linemen just for shits and giggles. So center, Ryan Jensen. You got Dwayne Brown, Connor Williams, Tyron Smith, Andres Pete. There's going to be some options available, I guess. I'm still convinced it's going to be Bakhtiari. That's just my guess. Oh, Josh Jones is a free agent too? That's interesting. It's interesting stuff. I'll say that much. Zach says, I would like to find a way to get T. Higgins. If you can make the money work, T. Higgins is friggin' awesome. That's the guy I want. If you can get one. Sign him to like a 3-year deal. Let him hit like another major free agent contract after that. As long as you can retain Garrett. It's more I think it's the contract length for me that is more the issue than the price of the receiver. So if T. Higgins and Mike Evans might cost similar amounts, I would probably prefer T. Higgins. Mike Evans just gets 1,000 yards every single season, though. So, like, you can't be upset with either one. You get either one of those, I'd be pretty pumped. Evans is never leaving Tampa, in my opinion, says NY Jets Florida, because he lives in Florida down there. So he's dialed in. Now, it seemed like based on like his contract demands, I think he was asking for like $27 or $32 million. It was like some insane amount of money. It was the Cooper Kupp contract. It was a lot of money per year. And it was like clear that the Bucs are not going to be able to do that. And I don't think they're going to franchise tag him. So I think he's going to leave. Depends what he's looking for. Mario says, Barrios, come back home. I like Barrios. I was bummed to see him go. Like, I feel like they're, like, if you could kind of do it over, if you could have Barrios instead of Hardman, that might have been a better play. Josh says Hollywood's his favorite. Michael says, let's get this W tonight. Jimmy Jet says, didn't Thomas get arrested? Yeah, didn't he throw like a brick through someone's car? I think that's what it was. Or through his windows. I think that I heard he like someone turned around in his driveway and he like snapped. Jordan says, T. Higgins, I'll pass. He's going to get $25 or $30 million a year. It depends what Evans wants. Like if Evans is looking in the same ballpark as T. Higgins, I would go with T. Higgins unless you need to give him a 5 or 6 year contract. I'm not looking to sign someone for 5 or 6 years. 2 to 3 years is the contract I want on a premium type deal like that. Drug Monkey says Pittman and Ridley. I really like Ridley. I wanted him before he got suspended. I thought that would have been the play. I really like what the Jaguars have been doing. Jess says, isn't Hollywood a downfield guy? He's fast. Him and Mooney can both kind of do that same thing, which maybe that's what we need. I do think we need red zone, like just big body dudes, which is why I want Evans. Joe says, love Jaden Daniels early second and Penix late second to sit behind Rodgers. Those are actually the 2 quarterbacks I would absolutely endorse the Jets getting. If you can trade down in the first or somehow acquire a second round pick, like I think there's a shot the Jets are going to franchise Bryce Huff and then trade him for a pick. Like, I don't know if the Jets are going to be able to lock in Huff on a long-term deal, and they've already made the commitment to McDonald. I think we're going to wind up getting pigeonholed, and I don't think fans are going to be real happy with it, and I think it's going to be a bad decision to let Huff walk, but that's a way you could wind up getting an extra pick. And if you wanted to use it on Jaden Daniels or Michael Penix and let them sit behind Rodgers for like 2 or 3 years, I'm 100% on board with that. I would like to see that, actually. The only thing is I think Penix goes first round. Jaden Daniels, after his performance last night, dude had like 600 yards by himself. He had like 200 yards on the ground. He might be the Heisman. Close. Maybe. He'll get invited. I don't know if he'll actually get the Heisman this year. Harlan says, good offensive linemen come off the board in rounds 4, 5, and 6. 1 year, Jets picked an offensive lineman, a guard, in round 7, who was named an all-rookie team and made the Pro Bowl several times. So the Jets need offensive linemen, and I would like them to be able to hit on offensive line outside of the first round. So how is Carter Warren progressing? How is, you got Tippmann already, you got AVT, you're probably going to exercise his 5th-year option, I would think. Becton, I don't get the feeling Becton's hanging around. I think Becton's going to be gone at the end of the season. But yeah, I would like to not have to use a first on one. But I don't think I see the Jets using a first on a quarterback. That's the thing. I think the first round pick is going to be reserved for an offensive lineman or a wide receiver. Second round pick, if you get one in some sort of trade, I could see the Jets taking a quarterback in the second round. I do think wide receiver and offensive line have to happen before the third round, or before the end of the third round. And Ryan Flores says, T. Higgins, great as long as Zach is not throwing to him. Yeah, well, definitely want Rodgers. Definitely want Rodgers. Zach says, just need protection and game changers next 2 seasons. We are in a win now mode for 24 free agents and draft. Yeah, I don't want any of these like long-term developmental type guys. Matthew says, sign Higgins to a 3-year contract because we have Garrett under contract for 3 more years after this. Yeah, I would like whatever money to whatever wide receiver we're going to give to be up by the time we got to pay Garrett. I think that's smart the way you allocate those deals. My Holy King says, why couldn't we win that game against the Chargers? Because we couldn't do anything right from like every standpoint. Aside from the defense, no one else showed up. No one else showed up. How is the wonderful game in Germany going? I'm actually not watching right now. I was watching it a little bit earlier before this stream. So you have to let me know what the score is. Josh says, I feel a loss today, followed by a win against the Finns in Buffalo. I don't know why. I feel like the Jets need to win 2 of the next 3, and this is the most likely win of the next 3. Our defense is going to keep us in either one, but both Miami and Buffalo can score points so fast. So you have to get this one. I believe our playoff chances are at 25% with a loss today and 54% with a win. Josh says, I love Huff. So do I. I really like Huff, but I think there's a good chance we trade him. NY Jets Florida says Penix is a first rounder. I agree. My Holy King, Ryan, why every time we have a game of importance, Zach plays like an extreme coward? I feel like we're always put in these sorts of situations because we can't just win games or beat teams we should be beating. Not that the Chargers are necessarily a team we should beat, but I felt like given the defensive performance, we should have been able to win that game. I don't know. Joe says Jaden Daniels is Jalen Hurts. If that's the case, you got to take him. I would be on the Jets taking a quarterback. Maybe I'll do a mock offseason soon and just kind of give you guys my thoughts on where I'm headed. Andrew says we need to give Kuntz a shot, guys. A giant target for the red zone, has good hands. He's not a great blocker. They want him to be an all-around tight end. He's not going to be. It's a waste and bad coaching call. I don't think Kuntz should see the field right now. He's not very good. I think Ruckert deserves more snaps. In the amount of snaps that are actually given out right now, I don't want to see any get allocated to Kuntz. I would rather see Lazard's targets go towards Brownlee. Harlan says, when the Jets go to draft a quarterback, they should not draft one in the first round. Jets should get offensive lineman before quarterback. I would like to go offensive lineman before quarterback as well. I would go quarterback in the second round if you can somehow get one of those picks, whether it's by trade down or moving a player. I like the lower expectation that comes with a second round pick at this point in time. I feel like our city, our fan base, is tough to have such like a high profile person come in. Now, even a second round pick, people will be looking at him and they'll be like, oh man, I really want to see the young kid play. But at least with Rodgers, you can still say, hey, look, we're allocating resources to keep you safe. You have to handle stuff in free agency too. I think there's definitely a way the Jets could go quarterback early. Lewis says, I think I got all my Zach hate out. Now let's go kick the Raiders' ass. Go Jets. There we go. One common enemy, right? Joe says, only 2 quarterbacks deserve early first round picks. J.J. McCarthy is worth a mid to late first, says Joe. I think you're going to see Caleb Williams and Drake May go first. I think Penix goes third. J.J. McCarthy could go fourth. I feel like I'm missing someone in there. Bo Nix looks pretty good. There's a lot of good quarterbacks. Like the Jets can get a second round pick, especially like an earlier second round pick. Or maybe they can coax like the Chiefs out of the late first round pick for Huff. That would be special. I'd be down with that. The more I think about it, the more I'm like, okay, well, maybe like I don't want to lose Huff. I really don't. I wish we could retain him and move someone else. But I feel like the contract and the recent investment in edge rusher makes me less confident that Huff is actually going to be here. Sports Frenzy says, don't be surprised if we lose 13-9 today and hold the Raiders to less than 150 total yards of offense. That feels like how we lose games or how we win games. Just like a brutal, like not fun game to watch. Well, but we got the win. It's like, man, yeah, but I still want to be entertained. Just like making my blood pressure go up watching this team. Zach is actually rooting for the Pats. Me too. You want to see the Colts lose. Joe says Penix is a major injury risk. You can't draft him in the first. So I haven't done enough research on the pros and cons of each quarterback. I can only tell you some of the games that I've watched and like been impressed with the play. Bo Nix is a stockier guy. I do like that. Penix and Daniels are both very slender. You got to see how their hands measure too. Like that's always a big thing for the NFL. I don't know. There's going to be a lot of good quarterbacks coming out this year, though. Dakota says Bo Nix over Penix. I'd be fine with that. I like Bo Nix. Blitzkrieg! Kuntz may take Uzama's spot next year. Conklin Ruckert should be in front of him. No first-round quarterbacks for us. Yeah, that's where I'm at. I want offensive linemen in the first round. If you get a second-round pick, I would consider a quarterback there. Sports Frenzy says, why would we trade Huff? Give him a blank check. I think the Jets want to keep him. I think they're going to continue trying to work towards that, but I think there's going to be teams out there that are just going to pay him so much money. And if that's the case, you cannot afford to not franchise tag Bryce Huff. Like you have to at least keep him on the team under the tag, or if you can't work out a contract, move him and get some type of compensation for him. You can't let him just walk out the door. Huff is so good. I want to keep him. Andrew says USC quarterbacks more often than not don't live up to the hype. So I am very happy the Jets, not that I think they'd take a quarterback in the first round, but I would not want to be in position to take Caleb Williams or Drake May. Those two quarterbacks scare me more than Penix, Daniels, Bo Nix, McCarthy. Like I'm out on those two at the top of the draft. I wouldn't like to see it. Wrong Verb says, remember the Herndon Hooker hype last year? Where did he end up? I don't remember where he ended up playing. He also got hurt, right? Lewis B says, is there another Mr. Irrelevant in next year's draft? The Jets can never find a quarterback in the early rounds. Maybe our luck is in the later rounds. I think having a quarterback in the mid to late rounds, you should draft one every year because you never know if you could hit on one. There's a bunch of really good players. You want to find someone with like a high upside. So maybe it's like, you know, if the Jets are focusing on the good character stuff, then maybe you got to find someone with a worse arm or like is not mobile or is mobile but doesn't have the arm and you think you can refine the arm. There's got to be some type of wart on a quarterback that late, but enough upside that you think he could actually, you know, play in the league more than just a backup capacity. Mac Jones throws an interception in the end zone. Good. Couldn't happen to a better guy. Josh says, Pats losing makes me so happy, though. Yeah, I don't care, I guess, so much. Patriots losing is all fine and dandy with me. Sports Frenzy says, we're a joke if we don't re-sign Huff. He's the most efficient pass rusher in a homegrown. Yeah. I'd be very upset. Very, very upset if Huff leaves. I think he needs to stay here long term. Douglas says, I wish this game had been flexed out of prime time. It's torture having to wait. I'd prefer having the rest of my day to sober up, whether it's in celebration or drowning my sorrows. Yeah, this isn't a primetime game I'm really looking forward to. This has the feeling of like a primetime game where the Jets just unravel and spiral. We really need to have like not a convincing win, but like I want to feel good after this game. I don't want us to be questioning every move. Be like, oh, okay, everyone's dropping passes again. Oh, everyone's causing penalties again. Oh, okay, there's Zach, taking deep sacks. I don't want to see that. Dave says, I made a quarterback draft rankings last week. Caleb Williams, Drake May, Bo Nix, Michael Penix, J.J. McCarthy, Daniels, Dart, Ewers, Milton. So I haven't watched any of Dart, Ewers, or Milton. I have seen Ewers go higher in some of the mock drafts that I did look up, but I didn't. But they had like Jets taking weird, stupid fucking positions, so I didn't take a whole lot of credit or didn't take a whole lot of stock in those mock drafts just yet. And I want to do my analysis, but I do think we should at least look at quarterbacks through the first 3 rounds and just see where they fall. I love draft season. That's my bread and butter. I could sit and watch draft stuff all damn day. Joe says trade down to the first, to the late first, pick up second and third, quarterback, right tackle, and guard. Yeah, I do want to add another receiver in there too at some point, but I would like to grab a quarterback at some point. Josh Sloan says, 1 more year to learn, grow, and develop behind Rodgers for a quarterback we draft. Joe says, Daniels has ice in his veins. He's just such a weapon. He's so fast. They're saying he runs like a 4.5 at, I think he's listed at 6'3 or 6'4. That is fast. Wrong Verb says, Penix sounds perverse. Yeah, I don't necessarily want to like cheer for that that name because I'm totally immature. And I mean, think of the merch potential. We'll show you our Penix. Oh, man. It's a great name, right? Sports Frenzy says, the only way Zach scores a passing touchdown is a 3-yard screen to Brees, who takes it to the house. That feels like the only way our offense can move the ball. Zach says, Jets can't draft a quarterback. Jets can't draft quarterbacks, have to acquire one. Most good recent quarterbacks drafted was Pennington. He was good, not great. Yeah. I mean, it's such a chicken or the egg situation, right? Like, is the roster so bad? Are the coaches so bad? Is the quarterback? So much of it is just like the fit and everything just working out. I like having a strong roster now and then going after a quarterback. And I'm cool with Douglas and Saleh getting another crack at it too. I have no problem with that. Blitzcrew says everyone wants to retain Huff but can't afford $20 million a year on him, and that is plausible to be offered. Might be forced to trade him. I'm telling you, Blitzcrew, I'm saying it right now, and I don't know if anyone else has really been saying it across the content sphere, but I think Bryce Huff's going to get traded. I think we're going to franchise tag him and trade him because we're not going to be able to come up with the contract needed to retain him. I think there's going to be too many teams that want him and are going to pay him a premium. I would love to retain him. If we can give him $20 million a year, I don't know who you got to move at that point. Do you like forego one of your cheap edge rushers? That wouldn't make sense. JJ's under contract for not a whole lot of money. McDonald, you're already paying a signing bonus. He's under contract for not a whole lot of money. So you got to figure out where that money's coming from. I guess you cut Mosley and you bring in like a lesser linebacker in the offseason. JFM's got to be gone. That'll free up some money. I don't know. I don't want to see Huff go anywhere. I really don't. But Huff could get you that extra first or a second round pick that you could use on a quarterback. And if that's how they utilize the value of Huff, I can understand it. I just don't want to see him go because he's homegrown and he's an undrafted free agent. Like, that's the type of player you don't let out the building. Huff is the type of player you don't let go. Joe says Hooker will follow Howell and Levis to stardom. He's injured and sitting on the Lions right now. Yeah, behind Jared Goff, that's a great spot for him. Zach says if they draft a quarterback, they will sit him. They will have to sit him for a year or two. It is an outlier that starting rookie quarterbacks do well year one. Yeah, I don't want to have to necessarily use a first round pick on a quarterback. I'd much rather use the second round pick. And with how deep this quarterback class is, I think there's going to be some good quarterbacks sitting there. They just might make it to a lot might go at the top of the second. So if you can get a pick for like Huff at the top of the first round or top of the second round or end of the first round, or in a trade down, you wind up somewhere there. Like, let's say you move down they're like, okay, yeah, we're going with a Bakhtiari. We were able to retain Becton. We've got our tackles. We're fine with like a second round tackle. We'll trade back in the first and we'll snag someone else. I don't know. I feel like I'm rambling in terms of quarterback. But as I watch more and more, it does get me a little bit excited. Dave from New Brunswick says, yeah, I love talking about the offseason stuff. No matter how the team is doing, it's a very fun part of the NFL to me. Yeah, like even if the team's doing really well, I still like looking ahead to the other, offseason stuff. Like just I love mock off seasons. Like how can we be better? Even if we're good right now, I want to see how we could be even better. And just, building stuff is always really fun. I love the offseason. And I think I'm going to start streaming some of the college games at this point because we're starting to see more of the bowl games and the, where these teams are at this point in the season. I know it's Jets Talk 24/7, but like we could talk about Jets stuff during those broadcasts, right? Joe says Daniels made 3 very nice pro-level touch throws yesterday. I didn't watch his entire game, so I'd have to go back and rewatch it, but he was very impressive. Zach says, Ryan, over under 35% third down conversion today. Your guesses. God, I hope it's more. I think it's hot. I hope it's over that. I really do. Missing out on third down conversions a third of the time really sucks. I'm going to say over. I'm going to be optimistic right now. I got to be optimistic. The last letter says, Penix is old. I'll take Daniels over everybody. How old is Penix? I didn't know he was older. Harlan says, Blitzcrew, you can't trade Huff. He is a free agent at the end of the season. You either sign him or you lose him. No, you can franchise tag him and trade him. You could do that as well. You could do a tag and trade. Dave says, I feel like Penix and Daniels have both been in the NCAA for 10 years. Yeah, the COVID year gave everyone that extra season. Feels weird. I think this is the last year that we deal with it, though. I think everyone else is going to start being younger again. Sports Frenzy says Rome O'Dunes would be a stud next to Garrett Wilson, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith duo 2.0. Oh, this is supposed to be a really good receiver draft. I heard there was a rumor that maybe 20 receivers could go in the first 3 rounds of this draft. I would love to get a receiver before the 3rd round. Joe says Jets are okay because Aaron Rodgers comes off the books in 2 years. They can create $67 million in cap space for 24 with restructure. So, yeah, they can push some money into future years if they need to. But as far as free agents go, like bring back Morstead, bring back Zerline, bring in a tackle, one of, whoever you can bring in free agency, whether it's retaining Becton, bringing in someone like Bakhtiari, I think is likely. Especially if he takes like a lesser contract because he hasn't been healthy. Draft one in the first round. Bring in a receiver in free agency. You got to figure out linebacker too. Mosley's got to... I hope Mosley gets restructured. I'd like to keep him on the team because he's playing really well and I like him as a leader on the defensive side. I just don't know how likely it is that we retain him. Or I don't know how likely it is. Because what is he? I think he's like a $20 million cap hit or something silly. Belichick just benched Mac Jones. Yeah, they should have benched him weeks ago. He stinks. Pat says top tier tight end would be great for the red zone. Imagine they draft Bowers in the first round. That'd be nuts. Blitzcrew, Huff can't be tagged. You can only franchise tag drafted players. Look it up. Huff was an undrafted free agent player. What? I don't think that's accurate. Now I got to look this up. How great. UDFAs that make the 53-man roster normally get 3-year contracts. Drafted players get 4-year contracts. First-round players also have the 5th-year option. No matter how great an undrafted free agent does in his first year, there's no way he'll get the franchise tag. However, he does benefit from seeing big money 1 year sooner versus being drafted. Yeah, I think you can definitely. I think you can tag someone that's been an undrafted free agent. Why wouldn't you be able to? Harlan, I think you're wrong. I think that's not correct. Mario says, wait, so teams are able to bench quarterbacks if they're having a bad game? Some teams have that option. Other teams don't want to take that option. The Freedom House says, it's crazy to expect first-year quarterbacks to start. They need to learn offense, players around them, speed of the game, defense, looks, and so on. There's so much to the pro game. I would really like to have someone sit and learn behind Rodgers. And this is our chance to do it. It just sucks that you got to cut ties with the number 2 overall pick when you had a beefy trade on the table from the 49ers. Josh says, Pats are going to get May, and we're going to be losing to him for the next decade. Not if Belichick's there. They're going to stink it up. John says, if we do trade Huff for a premium pick, I highly doubt it'll be used on a quarterback considering how slighted Rodgers felt in Green Bay. So they traded up for Jordan Love and did not take T. Higgins. That was the issue, I believe, in that particular draft because Rodgers felt like he'd keep playing. This year, if you address everything in free agency and you take a lineman first and you get a premium pick, like let's say a second-round pick for Huff at the top of the second, and you took a quarterback, I don't think he's going to really scoff at that, especially if you wind up adding another receiver to the mix too in the third round. Joe says, age is not the issue when drafting a quarterback. A 24-year-old quarterback can sign a 5-year extension at 29. If you can throw a football like Penix or Hooker, you draft them. Patch just lost. Zappy ended it. Fake spike for an INT. Good. Couldn't have happened to a worse team. Zach says, Ryan, rate Joe Douglas's draft. 2020, 2021, 2022. 2022 is an A+. 2023, I give incomplete but bad since no one is playing except Tittman now, considering they are in a win-now team. So 2020, you got to say, is a dud. I mean, outside of Ashton Davis still being on this team, I guess you got Bryce Hall late, and Becton looks serviceable at tackle right now. He hasn't been as good as he was his rookie year. Hopefully you can kind of continue to build on that. 2020 was a rough year. Morgan, Cameron Clark, just a lot of not good picks. Braden Mann cost us Trevor Lawrence. Like that, you're probably leaning closer to a D or an F on the 2020 draft. The 2021 draft, because you missed on Zach, really, really hurts. Trading up for AVT, I like it. I think that's a good move. It just sucks because you're trading up for a guard. So value-wise, there's not a whole lot there. Elijah Moore, you wound up moving off of, so that sucks. You use you get a second-round pick, so the Jets didn't really lose much value with them. They slid down in the second round because they took him like the second pick in the second round. Yeah, I don't know. You got Michael Carter in that draft. Michael Carter second was really good. Who else was in that draft? I don't know. I'd probably lean like D or C maybe for 21. I don't feel like he didn't really lose much with Moore. And I feel like he's at least identifying talent. Like I think Moore is talented. 22 A+, 23 incomplete is what you have to give it because it's still too early to judge anyone. But I would say definitely discouraged because it was not a win now draft this past year. It was very much a next year draft, which in the end might wind up being okay if Rodgers doesn't come back. Oh, but man, it makes this year hard to watch. Harlan says you just can't tag an undrafted free agent. You can only tag drafted players. Look it up. UDFAs could test the market. I don't think that's right. I really don't. I think that's incorrect. Because it's unrestricted free agents that you can tag. The Franchise tag is a designation that allows NFL teams to select one player set to be an unrestricted free agent that guarantees them a one-year contract if certain conditions are met. Each team receives one franchise tag per year and can be applied as either exclusive or non-exclusive. Transition tags are similar to the franchise tags with two exceptions. Rather than a top 5, transition tags are the average of the top 10 and don't provide any guaranteed compensation clause. Unlike the franchise tag, teams are given no promise of an asset if at the end of the deal, if the team refuses to match the competing team's offer, therefore losing the player, they do not receive any draft picks in exchange. What are the advantages and disadvantages of franchise tags? I don't see anything about an undrafted free agent not being able to be tagged. I don't see why you wouldn't. Like, why would an undrafted free agent not want to get paid a top 5 salary? The last letter says Pennick's age is listed at 23. Daniels' age is listed at 22. Daniels is just too unreal to pass up if we have a chance to get him. He's so fast. He's so fast for his height. He's got a cannon for an arm. I would take either one of those guys. Either one. Maybe you could pair him with like the receiver from LSU too. And then you have that weird bond, kind of like a Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow situation. Joe says, I think Huff would give JD and the Jets a hometown discount. I would offer 4 years, $15 million per high guaranteed money. Yeah, if you could give him like, hey, we'll give you 4 years, $60 million fully guaranteed. Like, let's do it. Let's sign up. Why not? Or 45 guaranteed. Give him 3 years fully guaranteed. I just think he's going to want over 20. Like, I think he's worth over 20. I really do. He's really freaking good. Pure Adrenaline Sports just said, just got here. Are you live streaming the game tonight? Yes, I'm going to be live streaming with Green Bean tonight and Jeremy over on the Talking Jets channel. So hang out with us. Definitely come through. It's going to be a lot of fun. Matthew said, I told everyone I knew to take the under. Got to take the under. Jets are not hitting overs right now. Bacon says DJ Reed is number 1 quarterback per Pro Football Focus. Sauce is number 6. Yeah, DJ Reed having himself a year. The secondary is really good. So 24 Resh says if Mac Jones can get benched in Germany, Zach can too. I feel like there's probably less eyes on the Germany game. Although maybe there's more because it's standalone. It's not competing with anyone else. So you could say there's probably more eyes than like any standalone 1 o'clock game. Zach will be on prime time. There's a little more pressure with that. But I do think Zappy's a better quarterback than our current backups right now. So maybe there's that. Troy says they're not even dressing Trevor Siemian. That's my frustration. I want to see Trevor Siemian as QB2. Apply a little pressure to Zach. What's the harm? Zach seems to perform well under pressure. As soon as we signed Trevor Siemian to the practice squad, Zach had his best game. Let's do it. Bino, 2020, just looking at it, you might think McCagnon made those picks. Yeah, 2020 was a bad draft. That was also the COVID draft, too, where they had a training camp, but it was like a weird interview process, too. Everything was like super awkward that year. And then the following year with Zach and the quarterback draft, that actually was the COVID season where like everything was adjusted and not everyone played full seasons. Hunter says Zach and Mac are equally bad. Really, there was no correct quarterback pick after Trevor Lawrence in that draft class at this particular point in time. You wouldn't take Fields. You wouldn't take Trey Lance. You wouldn't take Zach. You wouldn't take Mac Jones. In hindsight, you probably trade down and get the 49ers compensation and then take like Micah Parsons and have another like 2 first-round picks. And then you just figure out quarterback. It sucks to punt on a year, but maybe you don't trade Sam. I don't know. I don't think Sam was necessarily the answer at that point either. And you would have had to try and decide on this 5th-year option. You would be in a weird situation with like Daniel Jones. I don't know. Similar to the Daniel Jones thing is what I'm trying to say. Joe says, I think J.J. Huff and McDonald will be a top 3 edge room in 2024. Yeah, I do think McDonald's going to be good. I think he's going to be really good. if you can retain Huff, this team's still going to be filthy at the edge position. Hunter says Mac Jones throws interceptions at absolute worst times every game. Yeah, at least Zach's not doing that. But he's also not like really throwing the ball to help us. Like when he throws to Conklin in the flat on 3rd and 10, that always drives me bonkers. David says, too soon to give up on Zach right now. I don't think it's too soon. I think it's just understanding that there's other issues at play. Like, I don't blame anyone who has said, like, I'm done with Zach Wilson. Like, that's okay to me. I totally understand people that are saying, I still want to see a little bit more because all these other areas are bad and Rodgers or any other quarterback wouldn't be able to perform under there. I can see both sides of that. Tony says, we should have signed Wentz, bring back the Strevler package. I do want to see a little bit of Wildcat. I'd like to see Brees get like direct snaps and just see what happens. Why not? Radimus says, we broke Zach just like we broke Sam. Not all on Zach. Yeah, I don't know. Zach should have showed something over the course of the last 3 seasons. Cuddy says, I hope I just see competent offense today. I just want to see us move the ball. Like, get a few first downs. Give me like a 75-yard drive or something. I just want to see that. Be pumped on that. Hamskull says, every unrestricted free agent is eligible for the franchise tag or transition tag unless it explicitly stated otherwise in his contract. Yeah, if you have a void year or something like that, you're not eligible because you're not an unrestricted free agent because your contract just ends. I think it's on an expiring contract, I think is how that's worded. Zach says, those quarterbacks that you are talking about, how are their processing skills? Can they read defenses? So I can't talk specifically on the quarterbacks from this year's draft because I haven't done my research on them. I've just started watching, like I was watching the LSU game last night. I was watching Caleb Williams with USC versus Oregon with Bo Nix. So I was able to see a little bit more of the quarterbacks, but I have not remotely done any kind of breakdown in terms of knowing what they do well and what they don't, aside from like the stats. Daniels just had like 600 yards by himself. that is crazy impressive no matter how you slice it. Troy says, we're not making the playoffs with Zach. Come on, stay optimistic. Tony says, Jets are tanking with Zach. Bring back the Strevler package. It does feel like we're okay getting the highest draft pick possible. I don't know if I'd call it tanking, but not tanking. Zach says, Ryan, how would you rate JD's free agent acquisitions? DJ Reed A+. What about the others? I think Tomlinson's turning it around a bit. I thought that was a really good signing at the time, and it just wound up kind of imploding on us. But he's having a much better season this year than he did last year. Other pickups that he's had, I mean, he's brought in like John Franklin Myers. Not that he's necessarily a free agent. I think we got him off waivers. He was able to bring in Berrios for those few years. We got Quincy Williams off waivers from the Jaguars. There's an eye for talent acquisition for sure. And I struggle with putting too much focus on either the draft or, well, the draft should have its own focus, I guess. I struggle putting a little too much focus on free agency versus waiver claims versus undrafted free agent type stuff. Like, I feel like if there's an eye for talent, that's what I'm looking for. And I think Douglas does have that. What other free agents am I missing? Lazard signing is kind of a dud, but I feel like that's sort of the cost of Rodgers. Same thing with Cook. I don't want to sound like I'm scapegoating everything and not putting blame on Douglas, because Douglas should have brought in a backup quarterback. That's the biggest detriment to him right now. But what I'm saying is some of the players that we signed this past year were kind of the price to get Rodgers. And I think getting Rodgers was the right move. And I think the compensation works out where it's not terrible either. Freedom House says, I searched, couldn't find anything that said you can't tag an undrafted free agent. Yeah, I'm like 99% sure you can tag an undrafted free agent. Hamskull says, about Bryce Huff, Spot Track says 2023-2024 for Bryce Huff is he's a restricted free agent. Yes, that was this past offseason. He signed a second round unrestricted free agent tender. So he's a restricted free agent and unrestricted free agent. Rules only apply to unrestricted free agents eligible for the franchise tag. So he is not a restricted free agent. That was in 2023. He was a restricted free agent. We hit him with the second round tender. No one offered us a second round pick for him. So he's on a 1 year, like $4 million deal, I think is what it is. And he'll be an unrestricted free agent at the end of the season. And he will be able to get franchise tagged. So at the very least, you have to do that. You cannot allow Bryce Huff to leave at all. First option, re-sign him long-term. Keep a homegrown player. Second option, if you can't get to that point, you have to be able to get some compensation for him. Or 3, you have to keep him on the franchise tag for the 1 year. But that's a lot of money too. So I don't know how much you want to do that. Ryan says, over under that Boyle starts the second half. Under. Not going to happen. We're going to roll with Zach all day. Alternative Fact says, too soon to give up on Zach. We need another 3 years. Hey, Gino needed 9, right? Harlan says, 98 watching, 69 likes. Hit the like button. Ryan does a good job here. Support the channel. Thank you, Harlan. Much appreciated. Hit that like button if you enjoy what you're seeing and hearing here. Joe says, too soon to give up on Zach. They gave up on Sam. Sam was exponentially better than Zach. I really wish we could have seen Sam with this iteration of talent. Damien says, why did we get rid of Strevler? At least he provided impetus and excitement when he came on. I love seeing him getting the ball and then trucking linebackers because he throws ducks. I don't know if I've ever seen a worse pass come out of a quarterback's hand than Strevler. He is a horrible thrower of the football. He's fun to watch, don't get me wrong, but a horrible thrower of the football. Dave says we can't really compare Zach and Sam because they were two completely different coaching staffs and rosters. But you can compare them because they're both top 3 picks, and they're both the most recent Jet quarterbacks. And you're in the same situation with Zach after 3 years as you were with Sam after 3 years from a contractual standpoint, needing to decide on the 5th-year option and an underperforming quarterback, and what is the reason for it? Is it the roster? Is it the pieces around him? Or is it the quarterback himself? I feel like it's much more likely the quarterback in this situation than it was with Sam, given the talent difference on both of these teams. Now, that's not to say there aren't excuses for Zach. There are. But I think you could absolutely compare both those quarterbacks. Douglas, thank you so much for the super chat. Says Garrett Wilson was the first wide receiver taken in the first round since Santana Moss in 2001, and our second picks never pan out, and we wonder why our passing game struggles. I don't know why our second round wide receiver picks, Denzel Mims, Elijah Moore, Stephen Hill, I'm sure I'm missing a bunch in there, Devin Smith, like why none of these wide receivers ever hit. There's supposed to be 20 good wide receivers in this draft. So you should be able to hit on one in the second round if you come away with a second round pick or if you trade down and end up getting a later first round pick. Look, Jets got to add some playmakers, whether it's wide receiver. I would like wide receiver free agency, offensive line in the draft. And then I would have my secondary pieces like a questionable offensive lineman with a high upside in free agency, stud in the draft in the first round, and then receiver, maybe you go stud in free agency and a little bit more reserve in like the third round for a receiver. Tony says less penalties, bench Lazard, 2+ penalties a game. Lazard has been brutal. He cannot stop causing penalties. It's been like absolutely inexcusable watching him play. Did Ryan freeze for anyone else? I probably did. I got to check what's going on with my router because I'm getting this weird like issue with signal right now. And it's definitely not a stable stream. Joe says drafting a quarterback is not rocket science. It's the tools in the toolbox and the throws on film. Touch throws at multiple levels and throwing darts while getting crushed under pressure. Joe, if diagnosing quarterback play was easy and not rocket science, other teams would have much better quarterbacks than they do. I don't agree with this. I think it's definitely hard. Joseph says, what the F? Did we reject Carson Wentz? Are we trying to make the playoffs and encourage Rodgers to come back or tanking? That's my issue with this. Like, by trotting Zach out there and not bringing in any sort of competition for him in the event he's playing poorly leads me to believe you're okay with losing, which leads me to believe you're fine with Rodgers not coming back. I don't think the Jets believe Rodgers is coming back this year. And I think that's why they're doing what they're doing. Hunter says Minshew wasn't very good today either. I didn't watch the game. I've always liked Minshew, though. The alternative facts is Brown and Nagel, Glenn Foley, Bryce Petty, Kellen Clemens, Zach Wilson. Oof. Harlan says there's so much invested in quarterbacks now, I don't think the Jets wanted to get another quarterback. Yeah, but that. You have a lot more invested in the rest of the team than you do the quarterback. I don't know. I think wasting a season of Super Bowl caliber defense is a bad move. Cuddy says, the books disrespect Jermaine Johnson and Huff. Keep giving me money. Yeah, if you can find, I was seeing like good odds for 0.25 of a sack, like over 0.25 a sack, which means you're going to get a half a sack, which I feel like Bryce Huff gets at least a half a sack every game. Feels like it at least. Paul says, who is responsible for Zach to continue to get the starting nod? Is it Hackett? Is it Saleh? Is it JD? Is it Woody? Is it the JetBlue conspiracy? I don't think it's the JetBlue stuff. At least I really hope not. I think it's what they're saying. I think they're saying he's got the highest ceiling. He gives us the best chance to win. When I was in high school and we used to have guys that would go on, either a relay or would go to, sectionals or states or counties or whatever, you'd take your best three guys that could throw. So like we had, let's say 3 shot putters that threw the ball, threw the shot put well, but we had one guy that had one day where he threw it really, really well and it was awesome. Well, he knocked out a guy that was far more consistent at scoring points in meets because he had the upside of being able to do what he could do, even though he consistently threw the shot put lower. So it's frustrating because Zach definitely gives us the highest boom factor, but his floor is just so low. Just hurts. Hunter says drafting quarterbacks is like playing the lottery. You never know what you're getting, and it's most likely gonna be a dud. Yeah, I feel like other teams can just figure it out, and we just can't. Everything's harder as a Jet fan. Joe says Sam was 30 total touchdowns and 8 interceptions with 3,600 yards plus 65% completion percentage in his best 4-game stretch with a healthy, horrible roster in his first 4 years. When Sam came out of his second year on that little bit of a tear where he went toe-to-toe with Rodgers, or was that the end of his first year? Whatever it was, I was really, really impressed with him. Really impressed. And we just never got to see it again. Tony says, our best trade was sending Moore and selecting Tippmann. Yes, that was solid. Because I think we gave up our first-round pick or our second-round pick for Rodgers, because it was 2 seconds, right? 2 seconds and the trade down. I think it was our second. It wasn't the Browns' second that we ended up giving up. Or no, I think it was the Browns' second. I think we used our second on Tippmann. But I understand what you're saying. JW says, Zach has gotten more time than anyone I've ever seen playing the way he is playing. I feel this has to be JD not wanting to admit the second pick is a bust. Man, I hope it's not JD. JD's got to... I don't know. If Robert Saleh is being forced to play a quarterback he doesn't want to play, I would be very pissed if I was Robert Saleh. I feel like you owe it to everyone on the team to do that. I don't think JD would overstep like that. I think they genuinely believe Zach gives them the best shot, probably because Simeon's not that good anyway. I still would like to see him as an option on game day. Abe says, what's the starting offensive line going to be? I've heard Becton, Tomlinson, Newman, Xavier Newman, brought up from the practice squad, going to play center. He was the emergency center that came in for the Giant game. Tippmann, right guard. Mitchell, right tackle. That's what I heard it's going to be. I would prefer to keep Tippmann at center. But maybe they believe Tippmann between Newman and Mitchell creates a stronger right side than Newman next to Mitchell and just completely crushing the right side. David Smith says, if Zach has a good game today, the fans will like him. Week-to-week emotions. Yeah, of course. We're all Jet fans. We're all rooting for him to do well. No one wants to see him do poorly. Tony says, Hackett makes LaFleur an all-star. I do think LaFleur was a good offensive coordinator from a scheming perspective. I think LaFleur was likely the sacrificial lamb. One, because he was far too rigid. Like, I wish you could take the personality of Hackett and the play calling and design of LaFleur. Feels like everyone was just able to get yards with LaFleur's offense or with the Shanahan offense. Joe says, go watch Howell, CJ, and Levis throw touch throws at multiple levels and stick in the pocket on college tape. Go find it on Zach. Yeah, Zach doesn't have touch. It feels like he's throwing everything 100 miles an hour. Like, even the throw to, like, Uzama that Uzama dropped in the end zone last week, I felt like he threw it 100 miles an hour. And it was just like, well, if there's touch on some of these passes, it makes it easier for players to catch. Garrett Wilson brought that up in training camp. He said Aaron Rodgers throws a really, really nice ball. It is easy to catch a ball from Aaron Rodgers, implying that it's hard to catch a ball from Zach Wilson, or at least, harder than Rodgers. It's not just, Douglas comes in, says, it's not just the New York Jets that struggles picking quarterbacks. I also followed Denver and watched them whiff on drafting quarterbacks for years, and that was with a Hall of Fame quarterback at general manager. Yeah, Elway just can't figure out quarterback. He had to bring in Peyton, and then now they, ownership over there feels like they have to bring in Russell Wilson, and Russell Wilson looks like a dud. So that's really not too great either. Not feeling very good. All right. Where are we at time-wise here? We've been live for about an hour and a half. I'm going to call that a stream. We're going to call that done. So if you guys want to play some games and do some higher-lower contests, head over to Underdog Fantasy. It's linked in the description down below. If you use promo code JETS247, they'll match your first $100 deposit or match you up to $100. So if you want to only put $50 in, they'll match $50. But if you want to do that, it helps support the channel. They keep sponsoring the channel. I don't get any kickback for any of you guys like gambling on it or, playing it, but they just want to see conversions and stuff. So if you go over there and you want to do it, supports the channel. Probably win yourself some money, right? You do what I did. Quincy Williams over on the tackles, over on the rushing attempts for Brees, 15.5, over on the sacks for Zach, 2.5, over on the sacks, Aiden O'Connell, 2.5. Over on 5.5 points for Greg Zuerlein. That's winning some money today, I think. Boys, this is Jets Talk signing off. JETS.